Well, I've got my esteemed guests from Valkyrie Entertainment here who have been helping us out in really trying to make the most that we can out of our maps. So up at the top there, we've got Andrew Lund, Brian Rouleau down below him. They're an artist and a technical designer. And I'm sitting here in Providence Ridge, and it's looking a little different to me. This is about 6 in the morning, and is there just something about this world that just feels a little bit new? What have you guys done here?
Yeah, so this was our wonderful senior environment artist, Matt Tenari, worked on the sky throughout the entire day-night cycle. And in this morning scene here, things are just really socked in with fog, but you're still getting this kind of like glowy sunrise coming through. It makes the map feel, makes the morning feel distinct from other times of day, and also distinct from any other map in the game.
So you all have actually done pretty much a full overhaul of the graphical presentation of Providence Ridge. And so this is just the first impression that I get walking out of my base. But you guys have done a lot more than, I mean, you've messed with you've altered the way that the sky works, the way that the lighting works throughout the day. And I'm hoping that over the course of this segment, we're going to be able to see different times of day and see how the lighting in the sky changes. But what else did you all do? Like what overall, as I'm driving around in this map, what should I be looking at to see sort of the advancement that you guys have made to the way this map looks?
Yeah, so it's a lot of it's due. It's just with the environment, the natural environment. So you're looking at terrain materials and textures. There's got an overhaul. You got a little bit of custom alphas and blending going on there that was just very specifically put together to make the ground feel a little bit more alive. That was another one done by Matt over here at Valkyrie. And then the foliage is all been pretty much replaced with new foliage. So you can see we've got that subscattering going on with the leaves, just like we did in Trumbull Valley.
So maybe once I get to a slightly brighter time of day, we'll
Yeah,
be able
you'll
to
be
see
able
that
to
a little
see
bit
a little
better.
bit more, definitely.
But you can
And
definitely see
we've
some of that,
got
like some of
some new
these
stuff
leaves
going
right
on with the
here.
rocks.
Oh yeah, I was just saying,
Yeah, you
like
can
some of
see a
these
little
leaves are
bit of it.
definitely like lighter than others, depending on how much light is able to pass through them. That's a really cool look. And you were also mentioning
Absolutely,
something about
yeah.
the
And then
rocks.
when the sun,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, sorry, I'm all over
I'll
the
talk
place.
about whatever you want to talk
Yeah,
about. I
so
think there's a little bit of communication lag here, so sorry about that.
yeah, no worries. That's streaming. Yeah, so the rocks have a new shader put on them. Wow, that's amazing. They're using triplanar mapping now, which spreads sort of cracks and a little bit of just detail stuff across different assets. So before, where they were like maybe singular rocks placed next to each other, and you could sort of really tell the distinction between them. Now you've got this texture that's going across multiple rocks that make them feel like they are one unit, sort of one cliff face or one boulder, when they're actually separate assets that were placed by the artists.
And that's something that a lot of players might
So
not realize is that when you see a pile of rocks in a level like this, usually what you're seeing is like the same handful of rock assets that have been rotated and moved around and arranged in different ways. So you don't actually have to have that many different rocks in a map to have a lot of very different rock formations across a map. And so you're saying that like you're able to make these formations even more unique by basically putting something over top of them, even after the environment artist has arranged them in all kinds of different ways across the map.
yeah, yes, absolutely. It just feels more believable, like everything's sculpted out of one cliff face rather than a lot of just separate parts coming together. So that's something that's happened with the rocks. They also have a little bit of like moss and different texturing on the top of the rocks versus the vertical sides. So
Oh
you get
yeah.
this sense of like, it's just weathering. It's just more like real life, where you would have moss growing on horizontal surfaces that are often wet, and on vertical surfaces you wouldn't so much. So that's just a natural recurrent thing that we try to bring into the map to help it feel a little bit better.
A time sensitive request from
Yes.
Oddly Lemon Me. Can you drive by a plague heart so that we can see how the mist and the fog play together?
Oh sure. There's plenty. This is a nightmare map, as you can tell from me being attacked like this. And so, yeah, there should be plenty of plague hearts lying around. I'm going to get in this car and see if the car can survive the zombies all glomming onto it real fast. Come on. Get off. There
and
we go.
a question to field for the Valkyrie folks, because I don't think you guys messed with the day-night cycle. But are the days still an hour and a half long?
Yeah, we didn't change the time. None of the timing. It's just what you see in the sky.
Look at this mist as you're going up this sort of like this kind of switchback trail up past all the logging. It's just, you can see the layers of the mountain sort of rising in the background. That's so cool.
Yeah, the silhouetted layers, that's something that's really nice about this morning time.
Oh, oops. So yeah, I'm going to head up, I believe I'm pointed at the correct road. Yes, I'm going to head up this road. There's some plague hearts up near the starting area, and there's also a lot of foliage up there, which could give us sort of a better window into how much better a lot of this stuff can look now. Again, you can see more of these rocks here too, with like the moss on top and the cracks running through them.
Yep, and another thing to note too on this map, so we had a ton of blackberry bushes in here before, and we actually swapped those out for a slightly different kind of bush that covered the same footprint. We went with more of a salal bush, so it also gives the map just a different, just a little bit different things all over the place to separate it from some of the other maps, and especially the Cascade Hills map and Providence Ridge are, a little bit similar, so we tried to like push things in more towards the original art direction and get those two maps to be just feeling different.
So as I'm driving through this area, it's this morning period is going to last for a little while. Let me switch into more of a noon. So you'll notice that the fog has cleared up a ton.
But now the fog and the mist can't play together, Geoffrey.
Oh, that's true. We didn't actually do the thing that Audley wanted. Hold on a second. I can make that happen. I got all the cheats. Okay, so yeah, so here we are in the foggy morning. Cool. And you still got the plague particulate in the air. Oh, and a feral. Hello, sir. Oh, 3 ferals because we can't have nice things.
Drive!
No. We're going to deal with this the way we were meant to.
That's amazing. Yeah, the fog and the blood plague effect, they seem to work quite well together. It's almost like an ashy, just nasty, just very dead thing that's happening.
I'm absolutely destroying
messed
this car.
Up.
We got him. We're good. Oh, but there's more zombies everywhere. There's always more zombies.
You're a heck of a lot better at this game than I am.
Well, if Joe was running this, we wouldn't even be in this situation.
Fair.
But we're actually going to have something to say at some point about fighting zombies and the effects of doing so. But okay, yeah. So now that we've seen what it looks like in the morning, let's. And I'm glad I've got I queued up a bunch of echo weapons, by the way, which is really helpful for not attracting a million other zombies. So this is more of a noontime.
Yeah, so you have the fog burning off from the morning into the noontime, and you can see up in the distance, we've also added some new vista elements. We've got more of like some snow-capped mountains just a little bit away, so we're kind of wanting the map to feel like it's a little bit higher in elevation. You're not completely in the mountains, but you're not too far away from them either. So when you're down in the lowlands, you can see that quite a bit more.
Yeah, we'll have to look up at that again in just a bit. Yeah, let me drive around into like the really forested areas over here. We can, we're seeing a lot more of these rocks, which, oddly lemony, I'm really looking forward to seeing your screenshots of people sitting on these new rocks. And then we've got all these evergreen trees, which, I'm really curious, what it's been like working with sort of your tree building tools, because you've been employing some newer versions of the sort of the tree building middleware that we've been using, and what's the process like for you all of taking an older tree and replacing it with a newer tree?
Yeah, so we take the older tree and we export it out. We're using SpeedTree. Some of the older trees were made in SpeedTree as well for the most part, but we're using a newer version. So we bring that in as a reference so we can match sort of the footprint and the silhouette of the older tree. And we work it through in SpeedTree until we got something that we're happy. And then we have to do some fun things to get it back into this version of Unreal, because I don't know if you guys know this, but this game's been out for a little while. So we have to do some tricks to get our assets back into the game. But that once we figured that out, everything went fairly smoothly. So it's a pretty good little system. You just kind of work through it one by one until you got something something going on.
Yeah, so that probably was an extra challenge because like, all of these trees, you swap out one tree and it's going to get swapped out for that version of the tree everywhere in the map. Am I right about that? So it's like you got to deal with the fact that whatever tree footprint you have, if you put in the wrong tree or too different of a tree, you could make an area impassable that used to be passable, that kind of thing. So I imagine you had to be really, really cautious.
We did, and especially with the bushes, sometimes you have bushes that are up next to houses as, sort of decoration or whatever, landscaping type stuff. And so if you make your bush a little bit too big in one way or another, you could be poking through the house all of a sudden. So really, really needed to stay tight to the footprints that already existed and just kind of up the resolution on the textures and the way that things folded and bent and just try to make it feel a little bit more natural and more real.
So I thought I'd get high up a little bit just so we could see the vista in the background a little bit better because there's, it is really hard to see some of this stuff through the trees until you get up high. But once you do, there's really just a sense of scale and grandeur that you get from swapping out this stuff that's in the distance.
Continues.
We saw a really similar thing in Trumbull Valley because Heartland had one version of this vista, and then you guys really sort of upped the ante when it came to sort of giving it a sense of scale and grandeur. Are you using the same kinds of like forced perspective tricks and things like that here to make everything feel bigger than it is?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. There's less here than there is in Trumbull Valley. With Trumbull Valley, we had Mount Tanner that was so large and looming. Here, we've kind of just got a general sort of mountain range in the distance, so it's not like a huge peak. But with Mount Tanner, we wanted it right on top of you. And if you see that the tree kind of coming apart there, that's the wind. We did notice that, and we're gonna dial that back.
So La Coalición has a question. He wants to know: is it just Providence Ridge that these upgrades are going into in Update 28, or is it all of the maps?
It is just Providence Ridge.
Yes, each of the maps, I imagine, they've got a slightly different palette, and so like each one of them sort of deserves its own focus as we're trying to make these kinds of improvements, I'd imagine. So that doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing any work in the other maps ever in the future, but for right now, Providence Ridge is where this is going in.
Yeah, you gotta allocate your resources. This is the starter map. This is where people come after this tutorial. So this one's pretty important.
Well, we've looked at the morning, and we've looked at the afternoon.
Get some sunset.
Let's start getting into the sunset. But we're gonna treat I'm probably gonna cut a segment right here, talking about sort of the overall changes to the map. And so, actually, one more thing before we get into sunset, I didn't really talk about the terrain, because I think probably the biggest bullet points for the changes, the improvements you guys made. Oh, I gotta deal with this guy real quick before he causes a problem. All right. The trees are huge, the rocks are huge, the vista is huge, and of course, the lighting that you guys did across the map is huge. But you also messed with the terrain. I really wanted to call that out and ask you what it is that you did to sort of improve the way that sort of the ground looks and feels.
Yeah, so this was Matt Scenario again. He did an incredible job getting into Substance and Quixel and making new textures and then not just that, but making new custom alphas, doing a lot of very specific things in different places to have the different materials blend into one another. So your dirt blends into your gravel, and your rocks from that are actual meshes blend into the terrain a little bit better. And then also the grass underlying the actual grass meshes. So he did a lot of work with that, and especially focused on the blending of the elements together.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtle things because everyone could sort of remember like in earlier eras of 3D art, you'd just be able to see a tiling texture on the ground that just would be really obvious. It's almost like you're on a kitchen floor covered in tiles, or like MC Escher tessellations or something like that. But what the work that you guys are doing here is really sort of taking a lot of consistent pieces but blending them together in ways that make it feel much more natural and much less like somebody just tiled something across the entire world, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite a trick and a feat to get. Again, this is a game's been around for a minute, so getting everything into this version of Unreal is a bit of a trick, but he's doing a great job with it.
Well, this is all really, really gorgeous. And so we're going to switch over into nighttime, but while we can still see it, I mean, I hope everyone really can show you some enthusiasm in the chat for how gorgeous a lot of these changes that you've made to Providence Ridge really are.
Love the snow. Just love the snow.
Up there in the background. Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah.
Making me look forward to this winter.